Okay. We are back. No, it's been a little while, but been kind of working on some things. But wanted to kind of discuss a new deck that we've done. The Tarkir Dragonstorm has come out. A lot of people were hyped about this set and the Temur Roar in particular, the precon. And after kind of breaking it, getting it, playing with the cards, and just kind of like seeing how it plays, it actually kind of turned out to be a little disappointing. Don't get me wrong, the value's there. But if you were kind of looking for a dragon precon, you really do have to kind of sink some money into it to like really make it hum. And Ureni is a fantastic commander. I don't blame anyone, but I think overall Miriam is going to be the top teamer dragon. But Ureni will probably be just fine in the 99. But we're going to go ahead and go a different route because as soon as I saw the Eshki commander, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with it. And that is Stompy, big ramp, teamer, lots of just kind of elemental fun. What is Eshki? Eshki is a teamer, green, blue, red commander. That's a 2/2 human warrior. Whenever you cast a creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on her. Okay. If that spell's power is 4 or greater, draw a card. And if that spell's power is 6 or greater, Eshki deals damage equal to her power to each opponent. So, what do we do to kind of maximize her power and really kind of put the hurt on of our opponents and just kind of abuse her mechanics? Well, we cast a bunch of creatures. So we have 35 creatures in the deck. I was thinking about going a little higher, but with the kind of mana base, we went a little higher with the number of lands that we have because we want to make sure that we're always hitting our land drops. We also have a few ways to just kind of like get a few additional lands. I was thinking about putting a Azusa in this deck, just because of how many cards we're drawing. Currently, she is in the considering pile. The one thing that you do need to know about Eshki is that it is a cast trigger. So even if the creature doesn't resolve, she still gets the trigger. And also, it's based on the power of the creature before any additional effects go into place. So you can't just pump up the creature, all your creatures, and then get her additional triggers. It is based on just kind of like what is printed on the card. At least that is my understanding of how the mechanic works. We have an absolute ton of creatures here. Our sorceries are ramp. Pretty sure I'm going to be taking Sylvalas Stampede in here. I put it in the deck because it was in the precon, but every time that I played it, it kind of felt bad because the way that Sylvalas Stampede works is that you put creatures into play, you don't cast them. And that is a very large distinction. So you do not get any Eshki triggers. You basically are just putting whatever creatures you may have here in hand or, on the top of your library out onto the battlefield. You don't get the Eshki triggers. So it kind of just feels bad. Like, yeah, you probably get like 3 or 4 massive creatures out, but I'm looking to kind of maximize her triggers. Instances, we kind of went with a lot of Spell Denial. We have Bolt Bend, which is it's a lot cheaper deflecting SWAT. Decisive Denial might get cut. I don't know. Rapid Hybridization for like removal. Same with Reality Shift and Beast Within. And then we have Repulsive Mutation, Snakeskin Veil, Spectral Denial, and Stubborn Denial. These are also just very cheap counter spells that are going to be a lot easier to cast and just leave up 1 blue mana. And then for our enchantments, we are going to be abusing the fact that we're going to be casting a lot of creatures, and so we're going to be drawing a lot of cards. And let me tell you, you draw a lot of cards in this, the way that this is built. And then our mana base is, very high. We're at 38 lands, even though we're in green, and we are also ramping as well. We just you need to be hitting your land drops every turn, because as you can see here, the mana curve is kind of on the high side. So, going through the list of creatures, the first one is a Gonosaur Rex. This is from Ether Drift. It's a 8/8 for 5, 3 and double green. So this would trigger all 3 of Eshki's mechanics. It's an 8/8 with trample. So in the early game, this is good because you can also cycle it. And if you cycle it, you can put 2 +1/+1 counters onto one target creature or vehicle, and then it also gains trample and indestructible. So if Eshki gets targeted by something that's a destroy effect, then you can cycle the Rex in order to protect her. And the other thing is that because she gets +1/+1 counters, that means that she grows even larger, and then when she does do her final ability or her roar, it's just going to hit the opponents that much harder. So both, like, it works both in both ways. It's fantastic if you do either one. Animar, I think no one has... everyone knows Animar if you've ever played a Temur deck. But it is a 1/1 elemental with pro white, pro black, so very hard to remove in Commander. And whenever you cast a creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and then creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each +1/+1 counter on it. So this is a fantastic include because a lot of our creature spells are very costly, and so therefore we need ways to kind of bring that down. Anzrag, the Quake Mole. This is an 8/4 mole god from Murders of Karlov Manor. Whenever it becomes blocked, untap each creature you control. After this combat phase, there's an additional combat phase, and then you can pay 3 double red, double green in order for it to be blocked each combat this turn if able. So this is obviously it's just here to be a cheap body to trigger all of Eshki's mechanics, and boy does it. So just growing Eshki, replacing itself with another card, and then also giving her the ultimate ability to roar is just fantastic. And then Apex Devastator. So one thing that I've kind of realized while building this deck is that Cascade and Discover are casts. So you can read in the Cascade reminder text, when you cast a spell, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card that costs less. You may cast it without paying its mana cost. Put the exile cards in the bottom of the random order. Multiple instances of Cascade trigger separately. So, you Cascade. Say you Cascade into another creature. Apex Devastator is the most expensive creature that's on here, so you will immediately be able to cast it. That cast will trigger Eshki again. So, like, Devastator, I've been able to hit 2 or 3 additional creatures on there, and that just all triggers Eshki. it's kind of insane. So yeah, I guess Galta would be the only one that you would not be able to cast, but everything else you will be able to. Argothian Worm. This was just kind of something that I brought in here because, of course, I had one all way back when I was playing as a kid, and it's a terrible card except for being here where it's a 6/6 for 4 mana. No one in their right mind will sacrifice it, a land, or sacrifice a land in order to return it back to the top of its owner's library. I mean, maybe someone will, but that really isn't going to do them any good because it will just trigger Eshki again. But yeah. So Argothian Worm. Basically, I would not expect anyone to repeat this. There is another card called Pangasaur. I just didn't happen to have one, and I don't think that my LGS has one either. And, you know, it pretty much does the kind of like Pangasaur is clearly a better card, but I think Argothian Worm is just fine. Erixmathes. This is a 12/12 for 4 mana. Comes into play tapped with 5 slumber counters on it. And then as long as it has a slumber counter on it, it is a land. However, when you are casting it, it doesn't have the slumber counter. So, it doesn't have the slumber counters, so therefore it is a creature. So you are able to cast this. It triggers Eshki, and will trigger all 3 of her abilities. Birds of Paradise, obviously here for ramp. Same with Bloom Tender. Pretty much, if you can afford a Bloom Tender, I would only put it in decks with 3 or minimum of 3 colors. But it is a wonderful card. Cactus Folk Sure Shot. This is just... It's mostly here. It's here for a couple reasons. One is we've pulled out a lot of the dragons, so we needed some reach, and this is one way to do it. And then also it has whenever any creatures that have power 4 or greater, which is going to be a lot of them, come into play. They at the beginning of combat they gain trample and haste, so they are able to attack the same turn that you get them. Chandra's Incinerator. What a fantastic card in this deck. Let me tell you. So if you've seen my videos before, you may remember I had this in my Gearson Starn deck, which is the one where anytime that you deal exactly 1 damage to anything, Gearson Starn will deal an additional 2 damage to it. And so it was pretty easy to actually get Chandra's Incinerator out. This is probably a little easier. So this spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total amount of non-combat damage dealt to your opponents this turn. Well, if you have 1 trigger of Eshki, that is 3 damage to each opponent. This now costs 1 red mana. And it is a 6/6 with trample, so will trigger Eshki again. It will not see its own trigger, but that's fine. And then whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, Chandra's Incinerator deals that much damage to target creature or planeswalker that player controls. So, Eshki blows, does her roar, or as I am, the Siren's wail, as I'm kind of calling it right now. Chandra's Incinerator will see it. So if Eshki hits everyone for 5 damage, that means that Chandra's Incinerator is now going to deal 5 damage to any target, any creature or planeswalker that that the opponents are controlling. So, my God, is this going to be like one hated card combo right here? Defiler Vigor. We have a lot of green. It allows you to cheat out some stuff for a little bit of life. And whenever you cast a green permanent spell, which we have a lot of, you put +1/+1 counters on each creature you control, including Eshki, which just gets there that much bigger. Dreamtide Whale. This is just another cheap body, so 7/5 for 3 mana. It has Vanishing 2, so it will only be on the battlefield for 2 turns unless you proliferate, which if a player casts their second spell each turn, you proliferate. And guess who likes to proliferate? Eshki. She gets additional counters, making her bigger, so both of these synergize very well. Atali, Primal Conqueror. Atali needs no introduction. It is Atali. However, the exile effect that comes into play is cast triggers. So if you exile any creatures and any creatures from your opponents, and you get to cast them, the Eshki will see those casts if they are creatures, and then be able to proc her mechanics again. So this is just a no-brainer. I thought about the other Atali as well. The problem is, one, it's slower unless you have Cactus Folk, Sure Shot. I don't have a lot of haste enablers. There are a few, and then also this guarantees non-land, whereas the Primal Storm, it just exiles the top card from everyone's library. It doesn't care if it's land or non-land. You're probably not going to be flipping Atali, but I guess if you want to. Fanatic of Ronas, another great mana dork. You're pretty much always going to have Ferocious around turn 4. I think it's pretty much guaranteed you're going to have that. Galta, easy add in here. It's a 12/12, usually for 2 mana. It also has Trample. Goblin and Archomancer, just another way to keep spells cheap. Just get them a little bit cheaper. Same with Goreclaw. Goreclaw will, his ability will be very handy, reducing the cost of Power 4 spells by 2. This actually has been very, very helpful. And then whenever it attacks, other creatures get trample. That doesn't come into play too much, like a Rixmathes. A lot of creatures already come innately with trample, since they are big creatures. But Anzrag will benefit from it. Rixmathes. There's a few other creatures in here that don't have trample innately. So Gwenna, another just great mana dork here. You tap her. You can even in the Cascade or Discover triggers, you can tap her for mana, and then when those casts resolve, she'll untap, put a counter on it. So you can manipulate it a little bit so that, like, especially for like the multiple Cascade triggers, you can tap, untap her, tap, untap her, as these cascades resolve, which is really nice. Hammerhead Tyrant. Whenever you cast a spell, return up to 1 target non-land permanent an opponent controls with mana value less than or equal to the spell's mana value to its owner's hand. So this is a new card that was in the precon. It's basically Hullbreaker Horror. I thought about adding Hullbreaker Horror in here, and then decided, you know what, like this is similar enough. It's in the precon. Let's try it. I mean, for the most part, you're going to be casting spells that are more expensive than any of the stuff that's in your opponent's libraries, so you can bounce a bunch of shit and just be that much more of a nuisance. So this is a really, really great include. Triggers all 3 of Eshki's abilities. Elysian Carotid, obviously a good mana dork because it gets it produces 2 mana whenever you have Ferocious, which is going to be a lot. Imaginary Pet. Oh my god, what a fun include. So, Imaginary Pet is I'm going to pull this down just a bit. Okay. So Imaginary Pet is 1 in a blue for a 4/4 illusion, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, if you have a card in hand, return Imaginary Pet to its owner's hand. So essentially, you just have a spell that for 1 in a blue, a repeatable draw a card, pretty much every turn. So this is a wonderful card. Like it grows Eshki, it replaces itself with a card, and then it comes back to your hand on your upkeep. Yeah, this is just a wonderful, like, just stupid include. Also, it's just a 4/4 blocker, pretty much, throughout the game. So, love this card. Maelstrom Wanderer. Creatures you control have haste. This is a haste enabler. Also triggers all 3 of Eshki's abilities, and it has Cascade. So again, you can cascade into other creatures that are in your deck, and that will just trigger Eshki again. Outcaster Trailblazer. When it enters, you add 1 mana of any color. You can plot it if you want to, just in case like there's a board wipe coming or something. And then whenever another creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. So yeah, you will get to a point where you are drawing multiple cards every time that you're casting creatures. It's not very difficult. So you just keep it rolling. You're never going to run out of gas with this deck, as long as you have this or some of the other cards I'll be showing real quick. Overlord of the Hauntwoods. This is a great include. I thought about was it the Boiler Bridges, and I forget what the blue one is. They don't trigger all 3 abilities. Also, Overlord of the Hauntwoods does give you the Everywhere token, so you get a land when it comes into play and whenever it attacks. And the Everywhere token basically taps for any mana, which is delightful. So, and you can also impend it. So if you impend it, you still get the Eshki triggers, which is kind of stupid. Yeah. So great include. Real fun with this. Same with Pugnacious Hammerskull. Might as well just have a 6/6, essentially defender, until you get another dinosaur out. But when it triggers Eshki all the time, like, it doesn't matter. The fact that it's just 2 and a green for a 6/6 is just kind of ludicrous. Sub-Sunin Luxa Embodied. 3 and Simic for a 6/6 with Reach, Trample, and Indestructible. This card is kind of bonkers. I'm not sure why I haven't seen much of it in play. I guess people were. I don't know if they were using it as a commander, but it's just a fucking nuts card. So, 6/6 means it triggers Eshki, and then it cannot attack or block unless it has an even number of counters on it. 0 is even. Yeah. So, the turn you play this, you're getting a 6/6 blocker. Unless you have haste, and then you can attack with it if you care to. And then at the beginning of your first main phase, you put a +1/+1 counter on Sub-Sunin. And then if it's an odd number of counters on it, you draw 2 cards. So this is another engine piece that just kind of keeps growing bigger, and it already like helps out your commander. So this card is kind of nuts. So very much happy to have this included. And then Dreamtide Well will you can kind of do some manipulating things if you need to, with Dreamtide Well and the Proliferate. We have Steve. Everyone knows Steve. Everyone loves Steve. Steve is a good boy. Selvala. We have big, beefy creatures. Why not just have almost unlimited mana? So yeah, Galta, obviously, the Ansrag, the Apex Predator, Ricksmithies. You are going to be tapping Selvala for 8, 9, 10 mana, 12 mana, very consistently in this deck. Surak Dragonclaw. This is basically just to make sure that stuff isn't going to get countered, and then it also gives everything trample. And he cannot be countered himself, so there's that. So if you're playing a blue player who likes to counter all of your shit, I don't know why, but this kind of helps with that. The Temur Battlecrier. This is almost like a better Animar. if Animar is in the command zone, I think it's better. With it in the 99, like I think the Temur, I'm happier to see the Temur Battlecrier more often, just because he does his thing. One, he reduces the so during your turn, spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. Well, I mean, yeah, we have a lot. So he kind of does his thing immediately. So like especially in the mid to late game, whereas you have to like slowly build up Animar, and it also is every spell. Excuse me, not just creatures. Thundermean Dragon. This is the other dragon that I kept in the precon. I kept only 2. Don't at me. 3 in a red for a 4/4 with flying. You may look at the top card of your library at any time, and you may cast creature spells with power 4 or greater from the top of your library. So essentially, if something stalls out for whatever reason, here's a way to cheat. You just had basically an extra card in your hand, and if you do cast a creature spell this way, it gains haste. So another haste enabler. It's kind of silly. I don't think that it's going to come up too often, but the haste enabling is actually pretty nice. Topiary Stomper, obviously, it's a little bit more ramp. It's also a 4/4, so turn 4, turn 3 or turn 2, you play Eshki. Turn 3 or 4, you play Topiary Stomper. You draw a card and grow Eshki already, and you get to ramp a little bit more. It's great. Just fantastic card. I love this card. Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath. 6/6 for 1 blue and a green. Enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless it escapes. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you gain 3 life, draw a card, and you can put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. This is such a wonderful card to have in the initial hand. 1, it ramps you. 2, it triggers Eshki. And then as the game goes on, there's no recursion in this deck, so you can't escape him. And then you have another just kind of cheap 6/6 on board that will trigger Eshki once again. And then Vaultborn Tyrant, because why not? I was actually really surprised that this is now a $40 card. I didn't realize. I guess the vault, like, one, I guess I understand that like Outlaws of Thunder Junction wasn't too big of a deal. Like, not a whole lot of people liked it, and I'm sure that people are not buying it much anymore. And then the fact that they just kind of stapled on the vault to the back of that set probably just makes this a lot harder to find. But I love Vaultborn Tyrant. It's such a great card. So whenever it or another power 4 or greater creature enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life and draw a card. So once again, we're drawing additional cards every time that we're playing, casting creature spells with power 4 or greater. And then when it dies, if it's not a token, it becomes a token of itself, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. So even if like someone kills it or board wipes it, unless it was farewell, it's coming back and you draw another card and gain 3 life. And then the final card is Wayward Sawtooth. Because we're drawing so many cards, we need ways to put more lands into the battlefield to ramp even harder. And this is, again, why I was considering Azusa. But I figured Wayward Sawtooth kind of is a better fit in this deck. You also may notice that a lot of these creatures are either power 4 or 6. With obvious exceptions. One of the things that I noticed about this precon is that, and I didn't realize it until I kind of started building, is that a lot of dragons are actually 5 power, which is completely worthless for Eshki. And dragons are already a little overcosted. Makes sense because they have a lot of really great abilities. They also fly, so they have evasion. However, you want to trigger Eshki as much as possible. So having a bunch of dragons in this deck didn't make a lot of sense because they're already expensive, and if they're 5 power, you're not using your commander to its fullest ability. So this is the one exception that I have in here, and it's mostly here for the being able to play additional lands in here. Also, it's 2 and a green for a 5/5. So. Sorceries, we obviously have our mana ramp, so we have Cultivate, Farseek, Nature's Lore. And then, as I said before, Selvala Stampede is in here because it was in the precon, but it is probably going to be the first card to get cut. Like I said before, it is a council's dilemma, so everyone votes to see, so you either vote for wild or free. Any wild comes from the top of your deck. Any free votes are creature cards that come from your library. Problem is that it is a put effect, it's not a cast, and so therefore this kind of ruins the whole point of this. You are paying 6 mana to get hopefully 3 or 4 big bodies out onto the battlefield, but you're not getting those triggers. So that's why I'm really considering cutting this. There was a thought that I had of putting Rishgar's expertise in here. That is, you draw cards equal to the highest power of creatures that you control, and then you can put a permanent, you can cast a permanent without paying its mana cost. The problem is, I think it's 7 mana. Let me see here. It's okay. It's 6 mana. So it's the same cost. With mana value 5 or less, from your hand without paying its mana cost. Here's the thing: we're already drawing a shitload of cards, so Rishgar's expertise is not going to be that helpful because you really don't need to reload your hand. Like, you really just need to be playing as big of creatures as you can. So, yes, this is a very strong effect. It's just that it's not necessary because our commander is already reloading our hand all the time because we're casting creatures. So that's kind of where we're at with this, and we're probably going to be cutting it. I might put Smuggler's Surprise in here just as like another. It's another heroic intervention. Because Smuggler's Surprise, again, it's a put effect. It's not a cast. So, instance, we kind of went over, but we have our removal. We have our counter spells, and we have a few things to protect our board state and our commander. Artifacts. We have our Arcane Signet and Soul Ring, obviously. I put Swift Boots in here mostly as for the commander for hexproof, but this might come out just because I think we have enough. I think we have enough protection. This really isn't here for the haste because we don't have any real attack triggers. And then we have Herd Heirloom. This is a wonderful card. So you have 1 and a green. You can tap it to for 1 mana of any color. Spend it only to cast creature spells, or you can tap it until end of turn. Target Creature you control with power 4 or greater gains trample, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. So, just like it's just a stupidly good card. And then we have Chameel. Chameel is wonderful. I love Chameel. Spells you control cannot be countered, so goodbye blue mages. And at the beginning of your end step, you discover 5. Well, guess who likes discovering? Eshki does. Eshki loves discovering, because discover is a cast trigger. So, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card with mana value 5 or less. Cast it without paying its mana cost and put it into your hand, or put it into your hand. So, if you hit a creature, a lot of creatures are 5 or less, you will cast them, and then this will trigger Eshki. So yeah, Chameel, just solid include. This is the abomination I made. Yes. How you doing, Ace? Also, I should just silence my phone. But okay, for enchantments, we have more draw upon casts. I might take one of these out because I think at some point we are just drawing way too many cards. And we could probably replace it with a different effect. We'll have to kind of see. Busy with preparing for the move. Yeah, I don't envy you right now. I know that moving sucks. Especially out of state, because that's just going to be tiring. So Elemental Bond was, I believe, included in the precon. Whenever a creature with power 3 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. Great. That's almost every creature that's in this deck. Frostcliff Siege. As a enchantment enters, choose Jeskai or Temur. Jeskai is whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. Cool. If you really want more card draw, it's here. However, I recommend probably going with Temur. Again, it does depend on the kind of how the game is playing. But you get creatures you control get +1/+0 and trample and haste. So this is essentially Rhythm of the Wild, which is why this is included and not Rhythm of the Wild, because obviously Rhythm of the Wild would be very good in this deck. I just wanted to kind of include this just for the kind of theme. Garruk's Uprising, everyone knows it. If creature power 4 or greater enters the battlefield, you draw a card, and creatures you control get trample. Because why not? Why not? Monsters, Vortex, and Sunbird's Invocation are just absolutely nutty in this deck. So Monsters Vortex is whenever you cast a creature spell with power 5 or greater, discover X, where X is the spell's mana value. So Monsters Vortex can actually trigger off of itself. So let's say that you cast Galta, let's just say you cast Galta. So Monsters Vortex sees that you cast a 12 mana spell. So you discover for 12. And let's say that you get Vaultborn Tyrant or Subsunin. Well, then Monsters Vortex sees that you just cast a 5 mana spell. And so you get to discover for 5 now. And this will just keep going until eventually you're just going to discover into a non-creature spell or just whatever. It's kind of nutty, especially with these very kind of expensive creatures, and we have a lot of creatures in here. And then Sunsbird Invocation is kind of the same thing, but it only can trigger itself once. So whenever you cast a spell from your hand, which is how it kind of restricts itself from doing anything, you reveal the top X cards from your library, where X is the spell's mana value. You may cast a spell from with mana value X or less from among those cards revealed this way without paying their mana cost. So it is another cast trigger. Same with Monsters Vortex with the Discover, that will just trigger Eshki, our commander, multiple times. And so, yeah, you can now, so like, again, if you using the Galta, you reveal the top 12 cards of your library, and then you can choose any spell from the top 12 that costs 12 or less, which is insane. And then like what? So like you'll just choose a creature that you have in that giant pile of cards, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to cast this out, and then Eshki's going to see that and trigger herself again. And then Temur's Ascendancy and Up the Beanstalk are again more card draw, and then creatures you control have haste. Like I said, there's a lot of card draw in here. We might take some of it out. We're just gonna have to see how it goes. But the way that I kind of built this deck is that we have the land in order to cast all of these big spells. So we might actually be fine. There might be some other better cards in here that might just be a little bit better. I'll go over the considering pile in just a moment. As for lands, we have the Bountiful Landscape that came with the precon. This basically just allows you to. It's just a slightly better Evolving Wilds, because not only does it tap for colorless, but you can also cycle it if you really do not need any more land. We have Breeding Pool and Stomping Ground in here, mostly because we just needed the extra green. So these are their shock lands. We have one Tango land, the Cinder Glade. Command Tower, obviously. We have Slow Land, Frontier Bivouac, which is the worst Triome. And we have the better Triome, the Ketria Triome. Hinterland Harbor. I had a Misty Rainforest lying around, so went ahead and included it. Mosswort Bridge. The Hideaway is fun, but it's not a cast. Just bear that in mind if you're going to be running the Mosswort Bridge. I don't mind it in here. Just be mindful that it's not a cast. We have both Rejuvenating Springs and Training Center for the Battle Bond lands. The Verges. I love the Verges. I picked up as many as I could. So we have the River Pyre Verge, the Thornspire Verge, and the Willow Rush Verge. And you are going to... It's really easy to be able to activate both sides of the Verges, because we're in green and we can tutor for lands. And then obviously a Wooded Foothills we can crack that with the Misty Rainforest in order to get our Triomes and really just kind of get ourselves online. Finally, we have one Reliquary Tower because we are drawing a lot of cards. I did not want to put a slot in here for a Thought Vessel. It like, while we are drawing a lot of cards in here, it's not like an excessive amount, like some of the stuff that I've seen, but I've built before, like the that zombie deck that I made, that I don't think that so the zombie deck where when you draw cards, your zombies get bigger. You can draw like 20 cards easily with that deck, whereas this is usually like you are just replacing like the creature spells that you're casting for the most part. So for the cards that got cut, Beast Whisperer got cut because the LGS didn't have one. That's the only reason why it's not in the list. So it was originally in here because obviously it's good for the card draw. It also triggers the first ability of Eshki that we're growing her. Like I said, we're already like at a pretty good threshold of card draw in this deck already. So it's not the worst thing in the world. So I'm not too hurt about it, but I would totally not disagree having this included. It makes a lot of sense to have him in here. The Dragonborn champion, like I said before, a lot of dragons are 5 power for some reason. So whenever a source you control deals 5 or more damage to a player, draw a card. Again, we don't necessarily need card draw. He's also 4 mana for a 5/3, and he just doesn't make the cut when he's not triggering all 3 of Eshki's abilities. Same with Dragonhawk Fate's Tempest. I like this card. I think it's fun, but it's 5 power it's 5 mana for a 5/5 with flying. And then you exile the top X cards, and then you can do stuff. So you exile the top X cards, where X is the number of creatures you control with power X or greater. You may play those cards until your next end step. At the beginning of your next end step, it deals 2 damage to each opponent for each of those cards that are still exiled. So it's a really cool card. It's really fun. It's just it's not what we're doing. And so therefore it's just not making the cut. Hullbreaker Horror, talked about this earlier. We have the the Hammerhead Tyrant, which literally just looks like it's a shark's head on top of a dragon. The Hammerhead Tyrant costs 1 less. Yes, it doesn't have flash, but I mean, in Commander, who's holding up 7 mana other than to overload a Cyclonic Rift, which we're not even have on here. We don't have any game changers in this deck. So anyway, so the Tyrant is slightly cheaper, does essentially the same thing that we're trying to do. And so it would have been fun to have both of these in here, which is a possibility if you want to go that route. But I figured just one was fine. So yeah, that's just why he's not in here. Lupine Prototype. I use this card in my the Gitrog Ravenous Ride. Really great card. Here's the thing. Yes, it's 2 mana for a 5/5. However, you're almost never going to be doing anything with it. It's literally just going to be a creature that is completely meaningless and worthless. It does trigger Eshki, and it will replace itself, but it's still just going to be sitting there as a 5/5 that's doing nothing. It cannot block or attack until someone runs out of cards in their hand. And at least the players that I play with, they are usually good about at least having some sort of card draw. So that's not going to happen. You are especially not going to be running out of cards in your hand, and so therefore it just doesn't make any sense. O'Hara Kozlim, Deepest Growth. This would trigger Eshki. I had this card in the list for a very long time. Problem is that its ability. So whenever it deals combat damage to a player, reveal that many cards from the top of your library. You may put a creature card and/or land card from among them onto the battlefield, then put the rest on the bottom in a random order. So the card, ramping is nice, but you kind of want to put creatures out, but it is a put effect. It's not a cast effect. And so therefore it's not triggering Eshki. So it doesn't do as much as I was kind of hoping for. It's still a really good card. It's just I didn't have one lying around. And also when it dies, it turns into a land and you can bring it back. I wish if it were a cast ability, this 100% would be in the deck. But since it's not, the only really good thing about it is the ramp. Pangosaur, as I said before, I think it's a really good card. I think it should be included if you can find one. I kind of suspected that my LGS did not have one, and that's why the Argothian worm is in here instead because I had one from the olden days when I was playing Magic. Ronas, the Indomitable. Death Touch Indestructible. Unfortunately, it's a 5 power creature. Yeah, the fact that it cannot attack or block unless you have a creature with power 4 or greater is completely inconsequential. You're always going to have a creature. And then you can also pay 2 and a green to give it a creature +2/+0 and trample. Sure. Like, it's certainly not a bad card. It's just, again, we're kind of looking to spend a lot of mana. You know, we want creatures with 6 power if at all possible. Like I said, it's not a bad card. It's just I didn't want to buy something like this. It's yeah, like I would certainly wouldn't mind seeing this if someone else built this deck. Terror of the Peaks. Really wanted to include this. I really did. It just wasn't in the it just wasn't going to work out. So it's 5 mana for a flying 5/4. Spells your opponent's cast that target Terror of the Peaks costs an additional 3 life. In Commander, no one cares. And then whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Terror of the Peaks deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target. So that's the obvious thing we want to do here is we cast big power creatures. Terror of the Peaks sees them and then deals deals damage to anything that you want. Here's the thing. It's 5 mana for 5 power, so we're not even getting the Eshki Roar out of it. And then you're obviously, if you were slapping this down, you were just basically putting a target on your head. If I had one lying around, maybe I would put it in here just for the sake of it, because I know a lot of other people are probably putting this in here. But I mean, it's a good card, but I'm sure I could find other places for it if I had one. And then the Foretold Soldier. This one's kind of it's certainly an interesting card. I just kind of wanted to avoid Universes Beyond. But I mean, this was kind of hard to say no to. It's a 6/6 for 2 and double green. It must be blocked if able. The Foretold Soldier cannot be blocked by more than one creature. And then whenever it deals damage, exile it face down, it becomes Foretold. And then Foretell is 1 and a green. During your turn, you may pay 2 and exile this card from their hand face down and then cast it on a later turn for its Foretell cost. So essentially, you bring this out super early. You get all the 3 Eshki triggers. You attack with it. Presumably, someone doesn't have like you attack someone that has like some sort of chump blocker. Or you can just swing in, I guess. And then whenever it deals damage, you exile it face down, and then you just play it again, and then you get the Eshki trigger again. So it's kind of like the imaginary friend or an imaginary pet. So it's just a repeatable effect. It's just better because it's 6 power, and so therefore you're going to get all 3 Eshki triggers. So like it's definitely a good card. It may actually go into the main set or the main list, just because it really right now it's just because I wanted to keep Universes Beyond out of here. In terms of sorceries, we had Rishker's Expertise, which we talked about. We have enough card draw. Will of the Temur really doesn't make any sense. I had it in here because it was in the precon. You choose one. If you control a commander, as you cast a spell, you may choose both instead. You create a token that's a copy of target permanent, except it's a 4/4 dragon with flying in addition to its other types. Or target player draws cards equal to the greatest value among permanents you control. Well, we already have a lot of card draw, so it's kind of cool, I guess, if you want to draw 6 or draw 12 for 6 mana. And then creating a token copy that's a target permanent. There's not really a whole lot in here that would super benefit with another copy of it. If we had a Terror of the Peaks, maybe, but that's a pretty far stretch of having this in here. And there's a lot other ways that we could be copying Terror of the Peaks. So yeah, it doesn't make the cut. I think this is one of the weaker wills out of all out of the whole cycle. Starting with far of instances, an offer you can't refuse. Anytime that there's blue, I kind of throw this in here, and then decided that, we already have a lot of cheap counter spells in here, Spectral Denial and Stubborn Denial. So if anything, we might get rid of the Decisive Denial. I just like the fact that all of these were called Denial. Yeah. So an offer still possible to be thrown back in. Pongify, we already had Rapid Hybridization. We also have Reality Shift. So didn't see the need for another card, and these were included in the precon as well. So, and Slip Out the Back. Slip Out the Back is actually a card that I would actually consider adding in here. Not only does it give you evasion if there's a farewell to your commander or to any creature, I guess. But it also gets a +1/+1 counter, and Eshki would actually benefit from the +1/+1 counter as well. So this is a possible include, depends on, I guess, just who you play with. If there's a lot of board wipes or just targeted removal. And then Smuggler's Surprise. So this is just... it's kind of funny that people don't realize that this is almost as good as... I guess if you're going tokens, it probably isn't. But this is almost a much cheaper Heroic Intervention. And then you also have all the other modes, or sprees, I should say. We will not be doing the other sprees. This is essentially just going to be a second Heroic Intervention, if we were to put it in here. And that's just because the second mode, which is 4 and a green, you may put up to 2 creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. We just don't care about that. We want to be casting creatures. So that's why this is not in here. And then finally we have the Ozolith, the Shattered Spire. I really thought about putting this in here and then decided that, you know what? We're not actually going to be... Our main focus is not +1/+1 counters. If it were... if there was more synergy of +1/+1 counters, I would put it in here, but right now it's kind of... Eshki is really the only one that actually cares about that, and so it didn't make a whole lot of sense of putting this card in here, because yes, your commander is getting the benefit of it, but only your commander is going to be getting the benefit out of it. I don't know why Talisman of Impulse is in here. Really, honestly, this was... I think it was just in here because it was part of the precon. And then the Great Henge. I mean, obviously the Great Henge is a wonderful card. But it's $70. I don't have another one just lying around. I have a couple in other decks, and it makes a lot more sense to have that in here. We also have Greater Good, which I was considering. Then while I was practicing with this deck, I realized that I don't need any more card draw. it makes sense if you get board wiped to sacrifice creatures and then you can just kind of reload your hand. I think that would be the only reason that it would be included in here. Rhythm of the Wild, obviously we talked about, and we just decided to put the Frostcliff Siege in here instead. But wouldn't be surprised to see Rhythm of the Wild because it makes a lot of sense to have it in here. And then Warstorm Surge. So this was kind of in here with the Terror of the Peaks because it is kind of a similar effect. So whenever a creature you control enters, it deals damage equal to its power to any target, which is exactly what Terror of the Peaks does. I kind of just decided to go in a different direction. We're just going to have a lot of big stuff, and Eshki's just going to roar and deal a bunch of damage to a lot to your opponents. Meanwhile, you're just going to sit back and, you have these huge creatures that are going to be very difficult for your opponents to do anything about. So that's the deck. I am very pleased with how this deck came out. We will go ahead and do just kind of like a practice run real quick. But yeah, I am excited to play this at my LGS and just kind of see how it goes. So we'll go ahead and do this. I will make this a little smaller just so that everyone can see, and we'll get rid of my face. So this looks like a good opening hand. Got a little bit of ramp. So, okay. Yeah, we'll play the Cinderglade tapped. We'll also draw. Next turn, we will play this Forest. We'll tap 2 for the Signet. And I think we're pretty good. Okay. And then, yeah, we'll need the blue, so we'll go ahead and do that. And then we'll tap 3, and we'll go ahead and play Eshki. So, could have also played the Nature's Lore. But so next turn, what we'll do is we'll play this Hinterland Harbor. And then we'll pay 2 for the Bloom Tender. We'll make a counter on Eshki, and then we can pay 3 and play the Outcaster Trailblazer. And it does come with another mana. Unfortunately, we can't use it, but we will get a counter and draw a card. So turn 5, we're pretty ramping at this point. What we could do, and what we might as well, is we'll just play Chamil. So spells I control cannot be countered, and at the beginning of my end step, I discover for 5. And then we'll tap the Bloom Tender for Nature's Lore. We'll go ahead and get a breeding pool. We have 1 floating. We'll shock it in, and we'll play the Elysian Caryatid, and we'll add a counter to Eshki. So then Chamil will trigger. We'll discover for 5. We get an Uro. With Uro trigger, with Uro cast from the discover, we're going to trigger Eshki. She's going to get a +1/+1 counter. Uro is greater than 4, so we'll draw a card. And then Eshki is going to roar. So each opponent is now going to take 6. And then Outcast, Outcast or Trailblazer will also trigger and we'll draw another card. And then we draw a card from Uro. We gain 3 life. And we can put a land onto the battlefield. Tapped, I believe. Nope, just onto the battlefield. And then he sacrifices himself because he hasn't escaped yet. Yeah, so now you can kind of already see how ludicrous this deck is. All we need is just a creature with power 4 or greater to like kind of just keep us going. So we'll play this forest for turn 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll play this Goreclaw. Trigger on Eshki. She's already a 7/7. And then she draws. And then we also draw from the Outcaster Trailblazer. And then Goreclaw says whenever creatures with power 4 or greater cost 2 less to cast. We don't have quite the mana yet, but we can play this Goblin and Archomancer, which will trigger Eshki again. She's currently an 8/8. Actually, I guess we could have. You know what? Let's take that back. We'll tap this for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we'll play Apex Devastator. Trigger an Eshki. Draw a card. Blow everyone up for 9. Trigger on Outcaster Trailblazer. Draw another card. Now Apex Devastator resolves. And we have Cascade, 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 Cascade. So we Cascade for at least 10. Oh, it's Monstrous Vortex. Yeah, we'll go ahead and cast that. We'll Cascade again. This is the second one. Oh, it's Cactus Folk Sure Shot. Well, yeah, we'll go ahead and cast that. So Eshki trigger. We'll draw, get a counter, draw a card. Outcaster Trailblazer. I'm sorry, Monstrous Vortex trigger. We'll discover for 4. Oh, no, it's power 5. Never mind. We'll draw a card for the Outcaster Trailblazer. And then we'll Cascade again. This is our third Cascade. Oh, it's a Ricksmithies. Yeah, we'll cast that. So Ricksmithies, cast trigger, add a counter, draw a card, yells for 11 now. And then Monstrous Vortex trigger will discover for 5. Oh, it's Cultivate. We'll cast it. We're not even going to bother resolving because we're already still doing all this, utter nonsense. We're still on our first main phase too. So like with Cactus Folk Sure Shot, everything now has haste. I guess this is technically a land and tapped, but so yeah, that's our third Cascade trigger. We did the Monstrous Vortex, discover, into Cultivate. Ricksmithies resolves, draw for Outcaster Trailblazer. Do you see what I mean? That we don't need any more card draw. And then we'll have our final Cascade trigger. Oh, it's Surrak Dragonclaw. Yeah, we'll go ahead and cast him as well. Creature spells cannot be countered. Other creatures you control have trample. Trigger on Eshki will draw, and then she'll yell for 12 now. So we've done 9 plus 11 plus 12, so 32 damage on turn 6 to every opponent. this is just insane. Now, granted, it's Apex Devastator on turn 6, which is also kind of insane. But you see what I mean here? And then Monsters Vortex, so we'll discover for 5 its Birds of Paradise. We'll add another counter to Eshki. Like, we attack because of Cactus Folk Sure Shot. Probably kill everyone. If we don't, we're still going to have a Chamil trigger on our end step. Oh, it's Spectral Denial. We'll just go ahead and put that to hand, and then we we would have played this Soul Ring. I don't think there's really anything else that we would play, so we'll just discard a bunch of lands. Forest, Island, up the Beanstalk, because, I mean, come on. So, my goal in deck building is that if you were left alone, because obviously everything is kind of one-sided, if you're left alone, if you have lethal on board by turn 7, like, then this is a pretty good deck. And we have lethal for all 3 opponents on turn 6. Now, granted, this was a good draw, but this happens a lot more than you think. Eshki not only is an engine, but she is also a she is your lethal strategy here. So I'm very happy with how this deck turned out. I think if anyone else builds it in a similar fashion, I think you will as well. But please go ahead and leave any suggestions or comments or cards that I may have missed in the comments. I know that there was one other card that I was also thinking about. I can't think of it on the top of my head, but it's the Ether Drift Vanilla Red legendary creature. So they've created a cycle of legendary creatures that are uncommons that are all vanilla. And the red one is, I believe, 1 in a red for a 4/1. So that makes sense as an include. But I think, if anything, the Foretold Soldier is probably going to be something that might ended up being added to the deck. Kind of just depends on how it kind of this deck kind of plays with the other decks that I generally play with. So again, yeah, really appreciate everyone watching, especially if you stayed to the end. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Tell me anything that I may have missed or I am under or overvaluing in this deck. And until next time, I'll see you later.